students and undergraduate students. But at the same time, the same survey shows that the disparities between schools in Turkey are the highest in OECD and higher than Brazil. If you look at per pupil spending, Eastern Turkey is half of Western Turkey in a state that professes to be a central unified state. So I wish we could talk about these problems. Now, where does this take us between this sort of Spain, Iran trajectory? I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are some favorable international dynamics, there are some favorable domestic dynamics, but a lot also will depend on leadership. We all live in an anxiety-ridden world, and political leaders matter a great deal, whether they will be able to render that sort of entropy-filled chaos that seems to dazzle us into some coherent narrative that we can accept or not. So the question is, are sort of Turkish versions of Felipe González and Narcis Serra out there, and will they do the job? I live in Turkey, and I work for reforms in Turkey in my day job, so my bet tentatively is on the next Spain option. But there is no automaticity about this happy scenario. And people who will talk about Turkey's trajectory in 30 years' time will have the benefit of the sort of 2020 hindsight and can talk about this as if this was happening on autopilot. But, you know, I'm sure, as you know very well, those of us who need to deal with these things day in and day out have to make decisions that will, the best decisions we hope, about how to get from point A to point B in the due course. So I'll stop here and take any questions. Thanks.
In two populations in Turkey, the Armenians and the Jews. And when you're talking about the buildup of the more fundamentalist Muslim groups, I'm interested in when the couple synagogues were bombed and 300 plus Jews were killed. I mean, what was the response? And where are the Armenians in terms of the same feeling? How are people responding to that history, and is it being discussed?
And all in the next 30 minutes? I'm just kidding. You know, I guess the first thing we should know about Jews and Armenians in Turkey is that there are very few of them. I don't quite know the numbers, but there are, you know, multiples of 10,000s. Jews are a bit less vocal and want to be perceived as loyal citizens of the Republic. So when there was a movie about the wealth tax that was levied on non-Muslims during the Second World War, although the original script covered what happened to the Jews, the Jewish community leaders, you know, worked very hard to make sure that the movie wouldn't talk about them, and instead the main character ended up being an Armenian. Now the Armenians are in more of a precarious, the attacks of November 2003, was it? 3, I think. There were 4 attacks in the course of 5 days, 2 against 2 synagogues, 2 against what security people call British interests, which is a bank and a consulate. And a number of people died, but I didn't think there were 300 Jews. I think 300 people died, some of whom were Jews. I think more Muslims probably died. They were our homegrown Al-Qaeda folks, and there's in fact a Washington Post story about this this week. And they were coached, and you know, it sent a shiver down our spine. But we were talking about this before the meeting started. I mean, Turks suffer from amnesia, not just for tactical reasons. I think they suffer from amnesia in general. So right now, we don't talk about this. We also don't talk about the pending earthquake. it's just sure to come, and it killed a lot of people in 1999. And we don't talk about the fact that, a bunch of crooks robbed us of $50 billion during the banking scandal. So it's not just the Armenian question that we prefer conveniently not to remember. I think it's a larger problem. Now, on the Armenians, their numbers are a bit more mysterious because there is increasing evidence, in fact, through the work of some of the people who are actually in this room, that there are crypto Muslim Armenians, and there are Armenians who are just discovering that their parents or grandparents are Armenian. So the number is a bit more suspicious. But, and when you talk about the Armenians, it's impossible not to talk about 1915. I guess, one thing I should report is that Turkey has had more debate about this tragic episode in the last 10 years than it did in the last 80 years combined. And that there are scholars, institutions even, who are substantially deviating from the official line. And that despite what you may read in the media, nobody has yet been sentenced for saying that 1915 was a genocide, although a person has been killed, so I don't know whether. There is also the question of whether the outside community can do or should do anything about this. I'll tell you my personal line, which is not self-evident. Others think differently. This is the advice that we give to the European Commission, for example, that outside should insist on an enabling environment for free and frank discussion, which includes freedom of expression, academic freedom, full access to archives, but stop there, and should not attempt to shout down Turkish throat a particular conclusion about 1915. I think the domestic process is much more important than whatever decision that will come out of it. Now, as I said, this is not a popularly held view, but I'll stop here, and if anyone is more interested, we can continue.
I wonder if you could comment on the strategy of the government in terms of persuading Europe. In other words, do they have a proactive strategy for improving their image and dealing with France and Germany and so forth?
You found my sore point. They don't have a strategy. They're not trying. And I don't know what to make of it. There could be two reasons. One is that, Turkey still feels that it's an old empire and it doesn't need to explain itself to anyone. It just, does, and the world understands it. Or that this particular government now doesn't buy the EU story. Has looked the Europeans in the eye, and they think that they're beyond redemption. And they want the process for many reasons. It keeps the stock market high and interest rates low, because $25 billion were invested in Turkey last year, more than any other period combined. So it helps the economy. It also protects them from some unsavory characters domestically. So they may, just the fact that they're going through the motions of being engaged in the EU process doesn't necessarily mean that they believe in this without any hesitation. I don't like the second option, so maybe I'm in denial. So I'm still trying to convince that they need to do things in Europe. I've given too broad a brushstroke description of the European debate. There isn't one European debate. There are actually 25 or 27 European debates. We need to take the time to learn each debate and trying to make a case for it. The fact that popular support for Turkey's membership is low doesn't actually mean anything, because if you look at the Eurobarometer data, it was this low for many other candidate countries. And they, carried out massive